Hello there and welcome to I.NY Digital Online 2022 program, this year as part of the St. Patrick's Festival. And my name is Donal Dineen and I'm delighted to be your host today for this conversation, which is centered around the brilliant work of the Irish Arts Centre in New York. And so I'm just going to introduce our three guests today. We're going to be talking about some of the work that was commissioned last year as part of the Grásta commissioning program. So first of all, one of those artists whose work we're going to see in just a little while is Sally Matthew Garnett, who records as Loah. You're very welcome, Sally, and we look forward to hearing your piece, I.NY, in just a little while. Also delighted to say that we have the program director from the Irish Arts Centre, Rachael Gilkey, on the line too. And Rachael, it's a pivotal year for the Irish Arts Centre, so we're going to be finding out more about what's happening there and also what happened throughout the pandemic with the Grásta programme, so you're very welcome. And then finally we have another favourite artist of mine, dancer, choreographer and director Oona Doherty, who's going to talk about the piece The Devil, which was commissioned by the Irish Arts Centre last year. So you're very welcome too, Oona. And we're going to start off with we're going to actually listen and watch something that has been on repeat in my world for the last few days, and that is this wonderful piece of music written and arranged and performed by Loah called I.NY.
Our tree has an open end, too much life to break or bend, but I hear the weep of the scattered seeds. Little one uprooted from family, tossed in the Sargasso Sea. I hear them call in the sound of the shore. Crosses that we could never bear, dancing with the gods of men. I hear lament in the sound of the stair. That Hera is a vengeful queen, is sorely known by the women. Her reign from heaven over mother and child extends solely to the chosen. That Bridget wept for her son is an act we have followed. That first time keening undone, the original sorrow. That Maya died at the birth. Flesh of her flesh was the blessing, the curse. Her waters are the seven seas. Dousing you, dousing me. Oh, Mary of the blessed fruit, we were promised His mercy. A woman called the sun, days of
What a wonderful piece of music. That's our tree from Loa. Sally, my first impression was that this is a song that's been around for an awful long time, yet it's something that was just it's just freshly written, right?
Yeah, well, it is, but I will let you in on a little spoiler as to why it might seem like it's been around for a while. There is a reference to a piece by uh, yeah, Rahman there. So
Oh,
there's a
your
little,
man Rachmaninoff. Okay, yeah.
yeah, man, there's a little Russian moment that far predates us all. But
Yeah.
yeah, otherwise, fresh.
And talk to me about the theme. I mean, again, I guess it being around for a very long time, it sounds like the tree's been around for a while as well, right? The tree in
Yeah,
question.
the tree in question, the tree in question goes all the way back to the tree of life. It's definitely and the writing of it. It had there's a kind of a heavy energy of history around it because it's about my family history, and um, I guess I brought in some kind of characters from myth and religion to explore um, the questions around what inheritance and family inheritance is. So, yeah, that's a very broad answer to your question.
Yeah. Well, it's yeah. Well, I just on the point of so the place being Sierra Leone, right?
Actually, no. So, yes and no, right? So,
Yeah.
I'll give you some kind of grounded details in this. This is a piece about my mom who was um, adopted from a mother and baby home in Ireland. Um, and later in life, we she wasn't able to find information about where she was from um, until recently through like very popular DNA testing. So we had this amazing discovery of her birth father who was Caribbean, and that's where the piece kind of sprung from because it filled in a lot of
Mm,
questions.
yeah. That information is something that you've just had in the last while, right?
Yeah, in the last couple of years, so we actually her mother was Irish, and we always knew that, but she never knew where her father was from. So because
Hmm.
we found out he was Jamaican, we were able to travel to Jamaica and on holidays and go to the hospital where he worked, and we met a nurse who knew him, and we had this really kind of explosively miraculous introduction to a huge aspect of our lives and our inheritance. And while he had passed away, we met other family members, and many orphan adoptees never some don't seek that, some seek it and never find it, but because there was a racial element as well for my mum, it was really important that she was able to have that sense of knowing, because her
Mm.
color defined a lot of her young experiences growing up in Crumlin, and they weren't
Oh, she
always
grew up in
pleasant.
Crum. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
She did. So
Mm.
it presented a lot of challenges, and when you know where you're from, those challenges feel different. But if you feel kind of uprooted and there's no knowing, I think it can be much harder to face those things that happen. So it was really
Mm.
really amazing for her to have like bookended that while we're all still around and able to just like go be in the Caribbean and like eat jerk chicken on the beach and stuff. It was just like a dream, living in an alternate dream. And of course,
Mm.
it had to be written about. So, as her very obliging child, I was like, "Do you mind if I take this for my art?"
Mm. How does
Yeah.
she feel about the finished product? Does she love the song? I presume she's a very proud mum.
Um, yeah, I think yeah, she does love it. She's not she's I a lot of my sometimes some people might call it snobbery, but my musical particularities come from her because she's so musical, and that can make her quite an intense critic, because she's looking at her child and she's like, I made you, you're perfect, this isn't perfect, so I don't want to hear it. Perfect.
So the story goes. Is
Yeah.
the music coming from mostly from her side then, Sally? In your from your own point of view, is that where the river of sound that flows? Is that where it's the main source?
I love that question, the river of sound. No, it's definitely both. I mean, he is the one who literally drove us to like Kiltorry na HÉireann and to orchestra classes, and did the kind of like formal and training and made sure we got our musical education. And she loves music, and we always heard amazing music growing up in the house. But on my dad's side in Sierra Leone, we do have a couple of like total prodigy. Like my uncle is a piano prodigy, and um, it plays everything by ear. And my grandfather on that side, though I never met him, he was an organist. And everyone can sing. So there's like on both sides, there is definitely an unfair advantage in the sense that it's just everyone's constantly singing. Like we're all singing louder
Mm,
than each other all the time.
that's really gas. And so just in terms of the Sierra Leone part, right? Did you spend much time there, or how much time did you spend there?
Yeah, so what's really cool, and what actually takes this from like a story, an amazing story of family discovery to practically a myth, is that I did spend time in West Africa when I was in my teens, growing up in Gambia and Sierra Leone, and I know all my family there. My dad's there. We travel there a lot. So that's in there, and the music and the sounds of West Africa are part of my musical language. But when we found out more about my Jamaican grandfather, he was a doctor, and he had done some his own search for his family tree, because he was Creole, descended from slaves and slave owners and immigrants and emigrants. And he actually found out that his African background could be traced to Sierra Leone,
Oh, okay, right.
which is pretty cool. Yeah.
If we go all the way back, it'll just go to little one dot eventually. But wow, that's incredible. And
Yeah.
and just in terms of like the amount of music that is flowing through you, then when it comes to like where you're comfortable writing now, I mean, in the last few days, I've looked up things that you've done that, the range of stuff that you can do is, I'm not sure what the word is. I'm not even going to choose a word, but it is pretty incredible. But so like, is there a point at which you kind of have to kind of examine where am I at musically now, or is it something that you just kind of follow a natural path or wherever it takes you, or kind of like how does that work when you've got so many strands to your practice?
Yeah, that's an eternal, somewhat of a challenge for me. Is like setting limitations and boundaries on the forms, because I can do a lot, and it doesn't mean that I necessarily should. So what I'm doing
Yeah.
now is, I've done a lot of exploration, and now I'm kind of limiting myself by project. So I'm allowing myself, like, this project is singer songwriter. You're not allowed to listen to Bulgarian choirs for like 2 years,
Yeah.
I have to
Yeah.
like be really firm for myself, and I'll do a Christmas album, and it's like, okay, only Christmas music, and I'll do like a whatever. I think that's going to be my challenge and journey, is that I'm so blessed with just like endless streams of influence, and
Mm,
the challenge of like carving out little islands of one idea or one concept and sticking with it. And that's my
mm.
kind of, I feel like my life discipline for myself, which is a great problem to have.
Yeah, and there's this giant Loa archipelago forming somewhere out there in the ocean. But the like so just another thing that you did last year was you released the When I Rise Up album, which really tuned into something that I think was very pertinent in the sense that it was 1920s poetry, which made a lot of sense in 2020 or the 2020s. So like we'll say that project very specifically about something in a body of work, and but we'll say when it comes to your own debut album, which is yet to drop, right? Have you got kind of thoughts about how that's going to or what shape that's going to take?
Absolutely. So thank you for raising that, because doing the When I Rise Up EP was really good practice in
Yeah,
the one concept. It was, the poems were all from a period. The style of writing and the sound was, I limited it to 3-4 instruments and voice. And that was good practice for me. So with the album, it will be broader in scope in terms of genre, but I'm working with the same people, and there is a thematic, an overarching theme, I guess, intellectually and conceptually, that grounds me back, and it's about like healing and sort of music and medicine. So yeah, and I
yeah.
look forward to it.
Well, I think it's probably a good point. Thanks so much, Sally, to talk to Rachel about the IAC and the Grásta commissions, because on the subject of art as healing, and I think the whole point behind the Grásta commissions was this idea of chronicling a moment in time, and kind of trying to kind of reach in to find grace in uncertainty, which I think was the stated aim, and meaning in chaos, lots of chaos to choose from, and et cetera, et cetera. So maybe you could talk to us a little bit about the program, Rachel.
Sure. Well, like other fellow arts organizations, both in Ireland and North America and the world over, when we all found ourselves not being able to do what was in our DNA as far as presenting live work, we we wanted to find a project that would help us stay connected to the artists and to the audiences, but ideally in a way that also allowed for some growth as well. So we aimed for the prompt, though it's been called Grásta, Grace and Uncertainty, and there was an initial prompt that was sent out. We didn't, we wanted to be very careful about that not feeling limiting to how an artist might want to respond. And indeed, even what format that it might be delivered in as well. So across the entire series, we ended up commissioning 26 artists and delivering 23 projects. And some of them, and across all disciplines, and again, Irish Arts Centre, as a contemporary multidisciplinary arts organization, we wanted to make sure we were kind of true to the core of who we had been. And that's what's allowed us to, we've worked with both Sally and Oona across the years, but it was also an opportunity to connect with artists that we had not worked with yet, and indeed who kind of came across our radar because the world allowed for more digital programming. So there are a number of artists whose work I hadn't seen in person, just because you can't fly to Ireland every day, as much as I wish that could happen, but whose work they were putting work out online, and it seemed like a good opportunity to kind of connect with new artists and artists with whom we knew already, and then explore growth for both artists and growth for ourselves as an organization, to explore these different formats as well. What is a dance film like? What might work for a podcast, and how do you share a song the way that Sally recorded hers so beautifully? And so it's been a really great, I think it was an experiment, certainly, and one that the time, again, kind of embracing the chaos, allowed ourselves to have that permission to experiment. And, and I hope that the kind of body of work that is there now can speak to that as well, not only for that moment that we were all in and wanting to make sure that we were kind of providing connection for people who felt isolated in ways they maybe never had before, but also as something that can be, it has a future as well, right? It can exist beyond this period of time.
And even with these two pieces that we're talking about today, I think it's worthwhile. But just on the point of kind of finding a way in under trying circumstances. Like my impression as an appreciator of music and art over the last 2 years is that that way has really been found across the board, where I've been so impressed by the resourcefulness of the creators that I follow. And I guess I'm just asking you if you feel that, like, that would be your impression of kind of the responses that you get, is that, like water, art finds a way.
Absolutely. And, I think it became very clear very quickly how important the arts are to humanity, right? It doesn't always get that recognition. And indeed, we're probably going to continue to have to fight for that recognition. But artists, and whether an individual artist chose to step back from a creative process during that time or to lean in, I think all of that is actually really important as far as how that connects to how we all connect to each other. And that was a valuable lesson, I think, that I hope that we won't forget as a society, whatever society it is that we're talking about.
Mm. Because again, by extension, right, in my experience of being at shows since the pandemic, well, I'm not the one to declare that it has ended, but since things have kind of started again, I feel that there's a new space has opened up between the artist and the audience, where just that taking for granted factor is gone, which is something that's, yeah, really critical. And the absence of that means that the connections are potentially so strong. So just on that point, right, the Irish Arts Centre is actually in a very pivotal moment, because I think the 50th anniversary is this year, right? And also you've just moved into this amazing new space, and that in itself is a huge achievement. So I'm just wondering, sort of a general question of where the centre is at and how that's going. And do you feel that you're kind of capitalizing on a moment in time in that respect as well?
That's an interesting question, in capitalizing on the moment. I think
Sorry, I
we,
take back the word capitalizing.
well, no, I mean, I think we found ourselves in a moment where exactly what you're talking about, as far as audiences realizing how important the arts are to them and not taking it for granted. And for us, we were meant to open the new Irish Arts Centre in September 2020. We had to contingency plan and contingency plan and contingency plan, just like everybody else did. But we knew that it was going to be important for seeing ourselves as a place for communities, right? And all manner of communities. We knew that it was important for us to do everything that we could that was within our ability to control, right? Which wasn't always a lot at different periods of time. But to open this space in New York, and at a time when travel was possible again, felt like something that was really important to do. And gratifyingly, we've seen audiences come out in droves in January and now going into February. And one of the things that kind of has lived in my mind, and something that I missed when we weren't able to do live programming, was that ability to have conversation afterwards. And that was always an important part, even of the historic Irish Arts Centre, which is this very intimate space. There's not a lot of room to move around in the lobby, but nevertheless, there was a gallery there and you could stay after the show and talk. We weren't pushing you out onto the street the way that it happens in some other organizations or in other instances. And we just had Oona here with Hard to Be Soft in January. And the opening night, there was no reception because that's what the health environment dictated. But nobody went home. Everybody stayed in our gallery space downstairs, which is much more comfortable now than it was before. And they had conversations with each other. They were dying to talk with each other and to connect about what they had just saw and even what they had all just experienced in the last couple of months. So You know, I think the center as a place not only for kinds of conversations that happen on stage artistically, but also as a space where conversation happens all throughout the building, is a promise that I hope we're making, sort of a statement of promise that I hope we're making, and that we will do our best to continue to deliver on.
I can't wait to get to hang in that space because it looks incredible. And I think from every report I've heard, it feels incredible in there as well. Just a quick question on the kind of wider place of the Arts Centre in New York, Rachel. I think I read a quote there yesterday that New York is the capital of people who are not like you. And I like that in the sense that it always strikes me as such a place where anything is possible and there's so much to choose from. But like in terms of the programming, I've always been impressed that it seems to be have a wider remit, a far wider remit than just a kind of a narrow view of what Irish art or arts is or are.
Well, and that is something you mentioned, our sort of 50 years coming up, and that viewpoint was something that's been a part of the organization from its beginning. The people who came together and kind of basically occupied the three-story tenement building that we have been in before moving into our new home, and made it a place where it didn't matter if you identified as Irish or Irish American, and but as long as you felt some connection and were moved by the arts and culture, then you were welcome. And of course, it's important to expand beyond that, because the idea of who is Irish and who is Irish American has been limiting in some circles, and and that has been an important part of kind of the DNA, at least for what we strive through programmatically, is to communicate this inclusive idea, a broader idea of what is Ireland.
Yeah, well, I think even with the two pieces that we're talking about today, it's very obvious that there's a very wide definition of what is Irish and what is Ireland. Thank you so much, Rachel. We'll chat a little bit more, but at this point, I just want to introduce the second piece of work, which was, again, part of the Grásta Commission series. And this time it's by Oona Doherty, and we're going to watch it and then I'll chat to Oona. So here is The Dance by Oona Doherty.
you time of need. How come you didn't show up? I don't know how it done happened. The devil caught me napping. He must have come without a rapping, without a rapping on my door. And he done took me flirting. My honey, you can be certain I didn't mean to go hurting, and I ain't gonna anymore. My honey child, won't you believe me? I'll drive that devil far away. If he returns, he won't deceive me, 'cause I'll just tell him, come back another day. I don't know how it done happened. The devil caught me napping. He must have come without a rapping, without a rapping on my door. But he and I don't talk no more. Child, won't you believe me? I'll drive that devil far away. If he returns, he won't deceive me, 'cause I'll just tell him he'll have to come back some other day. I don't know how it done happened. The devil caught me napping. He must have come without a rapping, without a rapping on my door. But he and I don't talk no more. Baby, is you sure?
Yeah, from the Irish Arts Centre Grásta Commission series. That's The Devil by Oona Doherty, and Oona is right here. So Oona, I was lucky enough to see Hope Hunt and the Ascension into Lazarus and Hard to Be Soft, Belfast Prayer on the stage or here in Dublin. So I know what to expect from your work, and that my first impressions were of an artist who was working really outside the boundaries of what's expected of what dance should be or a show should be. So it's no surprise to see a work this brave presented. So congratulations on yet another great achievement. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about how it came about and what's going on there.
So it's just because Rachel was saying rang and said make a dance film. And it was lockdown in the winter. And I was like, oh, I'm pregnant. She said, that's grand, just make a pregnant dance film.
Yeah.
So I just because my whole life changed because it was lockdown and I'd been on tour for 4 years. And then it was lockdown and I was pregnant. So my whole life changed. So I just murdered the old Oona. That's what's happening.
Yeah. Got rid of the old Oona. So just on the terms of the process of making the films, right? I talked to you before about the collaboration that you made with Jamie XX. I don't know, the video that you made, and like what seemed to kind of be obvious from that project is just how you have the means at your disposal to make something up when it comes to collaborating with Luca, right? So that relationship, that working relationship that you have, I presume that's key to being able to do something or take up the offer, Rachel's offer of the commission to actually go and make something.
100%, yeah. One of my best mates is one of the most talented cinematographers ever. So if they're asking you to do, the thing about the online stuff is that you can't do live. You had to
Yeah,
make a film for dancing. But me and Lou had been doing films, so it was good. We
yeah.
could do it, you know. He's super
Because
talented because he was a photographer, so he knows all about lighting and everything. And then now cinematographer, and basically nearly only photographs and videos dancers. So actually he knows how to move, and most cinematographers don't know how to move.
because like this film, so just specifically this one, right? It works on such a cinematic level in terms of, if you showed it to a group of film students, there's so many parts of it that that reference classical cinema, and in terms of the lighting and the sound production, the camera work, it's just at the top level, right? So you're working with somebody who can execute all of those things.
Luca did the sound as well.
Yeah, right. One of the most impressive things about it is the sound really lends to the tension there, I think, at key moments where the breaks in the sound, etc. Can I just ask you on the point of the song, right? Because I kind of pride myself in knowing lots about music, but I'd never heard Caught You Nappin' or that song before. Where did that come from? I know it's
Just good.
by Erwin
Yeah.
Litze and Andrea Litze. Yeah, yeah.
What's it called?
I
Andrea
think it's
Litke and Irvin
Litz
Litke.
Litz. Yeah, Litze. I think they're like, from what I could gather, Hungarian immigrants operating around the 40s or the 50s. But it's got such a vibe. I mean, did you know that song, or was that something that you kind of had put on the shelf as something that you might work with at some point, or where did that come into the process?
So when I was doing my other shows, Magma and Hard to Be Soft, David Holmes did the music for me in my old shows. So when I
Yeah.
was hanging out with David, he would be like, he'd give you like what do you call it? Like a memory stick, and be like, here's some tunes for your laptop.
I, I would
Yeah.
love to get a memory stick from David Holmes.
Oh man, unbelievable! Like so cool. So he gave me loads of music. Had loads of music on my laptop, and I was really obsessed with the new Joker film. Can't remember the
Oh,
director.
yeah. Weren't we all?
Whacking. I was just into that, and also Hilda, the woman who does the cello, the music for that. I was just really into that. So I was just putting in. What me and Luca does is when we're editing, sometimes we just slap random music on it just to have a look, and it just came up.
Yeah. Yeah, such an unusual but brilliant choice. But look, like when it comes to sort of putting on stuff, Oona, like it just struck me that you never really needed a stage or stages. How do you kind of feel about stage work? I mean, was it a case that when you started dancing, were you on the stage, or how, the way that you use spaces, all sorts of spaces in which to perform and to arrange your work? I'm just curious to know, was there a period where when you started off, or at some point along the way where it was all on the stage, or kind of how did it kind of evolve to getting away from those spaces?
It was mostly on when I was being a dancer and everything. It was mostly on stage. I've done a couple of early on when I was in my very first job with Trash in the Netherlands. We did a couple of gigs out in a park and stuff. So I had some site specific. I haven't done that much site specific though. It was just that one bit in
Yeah,
Hope Hunt with a bar on the street. But
yeah,
because I met Luke really early on, like when I did my first ever job for Emma Martin, I met Luca. It was like years ago. So we've just always been making little films, and then you can go anywhere, and then you're looking at the cafe or the street with your film in your head. So you always
Yeah.
location scout, you know what I mean? But for like performing and dancing, I'm mostly on the stage, really. I haven't done like loads of
Yeah.
gallery work, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And just in terms of that initial connection for you with dance, right? Because like one of the other things that I just feel is that you're bringing dance or its meaning to bear in places and to people who might not normally be have an interest or be fans of the form. Um, how did it hit you yourself initially, and sort of how did you turn that into something where you went and became a dancer?
Oh, so whenever I moved to Belfast when I was 10, I moved from London to Belfast, and there I went to St. Louise's, and there was an after schools club, like a dancing after school club. And I joined that, and we were like improvising to Cats, the musical CD or something. And I loved it. That's how I started
Yeah.
dancing. I'm not very good at
Uh,
writing. I've never passed an exam, eh? Like, I wasn't supposed to go back to school because I didn't have any GCSEs, but my dance teacher was like, it's fine, just come back and do your A level. I'm only
yeah.
good at dancing.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
just lucky I
And
found
and,
that
and
out.
so you're
Basically.
looking. Sorry.
I'm lucky I found that out early on. That one thing I
Yeah.
was good
Big
at.
time. Yeah. Well, lucky for us as well. But so just in terms like of what of where we'll say the work that you've just produced there, like being pregnant, was it difficult not being able to dance, or how did you kind of manage that while throughout the pregnancy? Was that something that was tricky for you?
I don't know if the film is like any kind of body reaction to not dancing.
Mm,
I think it was the first time I've ever stopped and like sat down and read the news. I was just going and going and going. It was just me and my dancing and my ambition. Go, go, go. Completely naive to everything. So I think it was the first time I ever looked at the news and all, and I was really disgusted. It was dread. It was a reaction to dread. Like, oh,
mm,
the state of things, more than me not moving. It was just like, oh
mm.
well, yeah, become a villain then. Like if it's that bad, like be the Joker. Maybe it was a
So it's
little
kind
bit
of
of a
external.
maybe it was a wee bit of a
It's
reaction also to like maybe the expected of like you're quite healthy and you're a dancer and then you're gonna become a mum. I didn't want to be like a hippie, like green tea, breastfeeding, soft ma. I was like, I'm gonna be the Joker.
yeah. Well, I think you've achieved that what you set out to do there. Just in terms of like again, the film just seems to, and again, I think this was also in the I Don't Know video, but there's like it just brings a whole for me anyway. I'm not a dancer. I just love the form, but just the idea of the language of dance. He seemed to just incorporate so much of all tiny gestures, things that are just not conventionally seen as part of a dance or whatever. I'm just wondering about how you feel about where you are on that journey of discovering kind of the possibilities of making such films and just how, deep you can go with that work.
So the doing like natural gestures in the choreography, I think is that bit's super important. So that it's understandable. I find dance very confusing if I go and watch a contemporary dance show.
Mm,
To be honest, most of the time I'm like, I don't know what that was about. It was beautiful, but I
yeah,
don't know what.
yeah.
So putting a bit of like whatever acting in it, I think it makes it a bit more digestible. You can understand the narrative a bit better. And then for like making films in the future and all, like just hope to make loads more films. I really enjoy working with Luca and making shorts, like, and the fact that it stays forever is really cool. Like maybe
Mm,
my kids see it one day, or you can just show someone it doesn't,
mm.
disappear dancing, which is really cool.
I think that fits in with what you were saying, Rachel, about if I can go back to you about the fact that, one of the things about the Grásta Commission is that, okay, you are commissioning work for now, but you are also commissioning work for future generations and future eyes and ears.
Yeah, I think so, right? And it's kind of, I think as the world begins to open back up again, there's this conversation that's happening around digital versus in person. And I think this is another one of those kind of interesting lessons to look at, is exactly what digital was a convenience before, but then it became kind of a necessity. And so how does that work in people's artistic lives or how they consume art going forward? And there is a record now, an archive of at least this group of artists and kind of where they were at and how they interpreted not only the prompt, but where they were interpreting things for themselves and their practices. And and I hope Oona's daughter watches that film a couple years from now, maybe.
How's she doing, Oona? Yeah.
She just got her
How's
first
your little girl doing? She got what?
Her first shoes from Clark's. She's walking about.
These boots are made for walking. Yeah, she's dancing. And just, Oona, can I just go back to you for 1 second? Just one of the things that was really interesting, I thought about, the story behind the Jamie XX video was that you sent this, you communicated or got in touch with him and you sent him some videos of people dancing to the music. And I think it was just a message that you were kind of giving to him about, sometimes as an artist, when the work gets too much, when it all gets on top of you, you just kind of have to if there is some way of reminding yourself what it's all about. And what it's all about is the fact that people react to things that are made. And, I'm talking about how much I loved your piece, Sally, and I'm talking about how much I loved your piece, Oona. And these are the things that matter. And I think in sending those videos of people dancing to Jamie's track, you started a conversation. But I guess it's something that I'm just wondering, in terms of the motivation for making work, that idea of there being, in your case, Oona, your daughter's now, you have a daughter who's going to see this work.
It's a funny one with that chat, because, art's really important, but I'm really swimming in the middle of that at the minute.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, it's not... It is important. I met a man in the pub when we were in New York there with Rachel and all, and his job was to calculate the rate that the rainforest is chopped down. I was like, fuck, do you need a pint? Like, sorry for swearing. And I was saying I wasn't sure if it's worth it now. I have a kid and going on tour and making the art, and actually it's the same audience, and actually it's for the left elite, and actually it might not make a difference. It was like, if we're not fighting for culture, then what the hell are we fighting for? And that helped me out a little bit. But I'm really not. I know that's terrible to say, but I'm not 100% of like, of course we have to save the arts, but it's more complicated in my head at the minute. If you're flying cast of people on airplanes to go and do a creation and go on tour, and that has a effect on the planet. But I don't know. It's complicated. I don't know, maybe I should have said that at the end of the conversation. I think it's an ongoing conversation of like, the arts are worth it, but we also have a responsibility of like who's looking at it. Like Sally was saying about like making the album about music and healing, like really being acute with like actually the dagger of the healing, rather than it becoming loose around the edges and spending budgets and doing, you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I think what you're talking about is just keeping your eye on the ball while you're making stuff and all this is going on, because there's so much to be aware of right now. Would that be something you'd feel the same about, Sally?
Absolutely. Even like the theme of the project, Grace in Uncertainty. Like there, as you described so well, there is this uncertainty sometimes about the potential narcissism that can inhabit your work, and you battle with, who am I doing this for? Like, really, if I'm honest with myself. And then, but because I feel very spiritually about things, and I've cultivated that, I really feel and believe and work from a space that art is a form of Eden. So for me, in Eden, when we get to Eden, all we're going to do is just jump around and sing all day because we're in utopia. So when you're making work and you're living so purely from your childlike spirit and just expressing, you are kind of creating Eden on Earth. It's little moments of it, and then it reminds people, oh, we really have to fix this because I just want to be doing that all the time. So I mean, that's like a very, maybe that's even more ego, or maybe, but for me, it feels like a soft way to. It's on my heart to make work, and I just cannot battle with that compulsion. And there's no point; it's overwhelming. When I try and stop working, I get sick. So there's just no point arguing. So I have to create meaning from it, and I have to go all in and honor it properly, and deliver it as a community contribution. So that gives me a sense of responsibility then. And so that I can relax and get into the details of the skill and not be worrying like, do I deserve this? And that was really developed, I think, in the last few years because people were craving it so much. And it was like, when we need this for our souls. It's a childlike part of us that just loves pure expression.
Oh, how beautiful. I think that's, I think that definitely sums it up and makes me feel a whole lot better. The Going forward, Rachel, just the year ahead, right? This is going to be, you've got a big year planned for the Irish Arts Centre. As along with you mentioned that Enda Walsh is opening at the moment, and then there's also, is there a musical? Is that right, about Good Vibrations? Is that happening?
That's right. And, I say the year is kind of what's online right now, but we are kind of looking at our first number of years as part of just trying to do our best to communicate what is possible, with what might be possible with an Irish Arts Centre in New York. And so part of that, I think that's really important, is trying to create little points for artists and audiences and whoever may cross the threshold to see themselves in that space, whether it's the actual physical space or the kind of, mental space of an arts organization. And so that's kind of, I guess that's sort of what we're looking at for the next couple of years, is how can we, with that intention in mind, how can we deliver on that promise? And so we have Corcadorca's The Same by Enda Walsh that is going to have its first preview tomorrow. And then we follow on from that into March with some wonderful music engagements, including something with the bluegrass situation, which is just another facet of kind of what we try to do. Again, looking at what is Irishness, and so the connections between kind of Irish culture, Americana, West African culture, and how that became, and who gets to play bluegrass, right? Which is this kind of a question that we're trying to explore further. Not us, actually, I'll say. The artists because we're not the experts, right? But the artists who we're inviting onto our stage, kind of asking them to explore those kinds of questions further. And so it's I think I'm excited about kind of what's to come and everything that has been a part of the center leading up to this point, right? Everybody, it is very much, it's not just the full-time staff and part-time staff who are here now and the artists who have been with us over the last little while. It's all of these inputs have been part of creating this space that is New York, but kind of has this bridge, of course, to Ireland and to the diaspora all across the world. And I just want to thank Sala and Oona for everything that they have kind of given and engaged with as part of that. Yeah, well, I'd echo that gratitude, and thanks to you, Rachel, for joining us today, and I wish you luck with the year ahead and the years ahead indeed. To you, Oona, I cannot wait to see and hear what you do next, and congratulations once again on The Devil, such an incredible piece of work. And Sally, I look forward to everything you release next year or this year, and to that album, because I'm ready to be healed, let's put it that way. So I look forward to hearing more from Loah in 2022.
Thanks, Oona and Rachel and Sally, and this is Donal Dineen saying goodbye. Thank you very much.